Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Acquire and operate Micro SaaS. You got Kjael here. We are buying and building niche vertical B2B SaaS firms, sticking to a corner of the world where we think there's some blue ocean. We're having fun. Woo, we're out here, baby. We are jamming today on a playbook for sequencing. And if I could underline sequencing, I would. Sales velocity improvements. And this isn't, of course, an operating concept, but of course, there's a little bit of an acquisition investor-y kind of lens to it as well. Table of contents. We got a little bit of context for you. I usually just put the context in there and don't give it a table of contents item, but I was like, maybe I should call that out. So we're going to talk context, and then we're going to move into tactics or components, variables, levers of the sales velocity equation to attack, and the rationale in terms of why they're sequenced the way they are. So there's a little bit of a foreshadowing, or what's the word? What's the word? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert happening for you. So we're going to talk about reducing the sales cycle length, which is high impact, moderate effort. Probably should have gone with high effort, but the impact is insane, and we'll talk about why. Qualify and prioritize leads using data intelligence. High impact, low effort. Increase win rate through advanced buyer enablement. Moderate to high impact, moderate effort. Expanding the average contract size, ACV, with programmatic expansion, or growing the opportunity volume through ecosystem expansion. So you'll start to see we kind of pull in a little bit more of our take on kind of today's modern buyer. And then lastly, emerging KPIs for sales velocity, and then we'll wrap up. I got my boy Kjael looking fresh to death today, buddy. I'm going to stand up so I can bring some right energy.
That's right. No, I'm feeling good, man. After a week of just slicing and dicing various metrics and getting into the weeds and just understanding hey, what does sales velocity really involve? I'm feeling good for this call. I feel like a whole new person.
And it's so funny, right? Because it's like, yeah, I know what that means. And then you get into it, and it's like, wait, is that revenue per day? Is that revenue per week? Is that, wait, hold on, the numerator, the denominator, where's the time variable coming? So you got to get in the kitchen and really get your hands dirty before you start to be like, all right. And I can't tell you how many times I was like, yeah, I know what that means. And then I'm like, we need to kind of sharpen our grasp on that topic as an operator. And I'm like, oh man. And the cool thing too, and I guess this is something that I did want to call out, I didn't remember to until just now, but I don't think there's anything more badass in the world right now than executing super interesting technical work with one LLM chat window up, and on the other LLM chat is the stuff that you're learning as you go. This is the sickest shit ever.
What a time to be alive.
It's just like, it's just like,
how much more can we do? It's like, you're like a digital ninja at that point.
Oh my God. It's like, hold on a second. Let me learn what that is. Okay, I'm back. Let's go. Okay, wait, that's a little weird. Let me learn what that is. I'm back. And it's just insane. I'm so jealous of my little toddler because he's coming up in a time when it's like, you want to build a rocket, dude? You need 2 chat windows open.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. And you got a budget of $200. Let's see what you can do.
Let's say rocket science on one window, how to remember how to sleep on the second window.
Yeah. What to do with an endless motivation.
Yep.
All right. So context. So I think we've kicked the man, I'm missing on all my little snippets today. We've kicked the horse to death as it relates to sales velocity. So it's just a thing that's basically kind of represents the physics of how fast you can grow a business based on 4 variables. And I think the message for this is, or what you don't want to do is say, all right, well, we're going to do this and shorten cycle time. And then we're going to do this and we're going to drive more top of funnel opportunities. And then we're going to release this new product and expand ACV, because that very often leads to what we call boiling the ocean, which is exactly what it sounds. You're just spinning around trying to heat up the entire ocean. You're doing too much. And you're like, the temperature hasn't changed at all. And I'm exhausted. In fact, I'm probably going to drown. I've just expended all my energy. The temp of the water is the exact same. So what we want to talk about, as I mentioned today, is through the lens of a return on effort. And that's another concept that we've spoken about a lot. And what we're looking for, you guessed it, is low effort, high impact. And we want to think about sequencing that such that, sometimes you might find low effort, low impact things. And it's like, let's just knock this down because we can do it in 2 weeks. And then that'll create, we can run some more strategic, longer term stuff in parallel. And we're comfortable with the resources that's going to require. So anyway, number 1, reducing the sales cycle length. So, and it's so funny when me and Kev are just jamming, and it's like so much of it is algebra. Oh God.
And clean systems of record.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't understate that. But the thing that's interesting is that cycle time. So that's how long it takes from the first time a lead is identified or whatever your process is to the time they become a customer. So they commit contractually to you, and then revenue. So it's the velocity literally at which you can generate revenue. Cycle length is interesting because it's in the numerator of the equation. So you can you can work really hard to make the denominator, the things above I'm sorry, backwards. Oh God. Cycle time is in the denominator, which means it's below in an equation, in a division statement. Above, you have the numerator. So you can spend all this time and energy making the thing up here big. But if this number stays constant, it's not going to have as big of an impact if you keep everything on the top constant and you make the number on the bottom smaller. So it helps to look at it. But by way of metaphor, the fastest way to get to somewhere faster is to shorten the distance from A to B. It's the highest impact. So that's just like one way to think about it. And I would encourage you to spend time with it and look at it. And what's interesting is that everything that happens in the numerator has a relatively the exact same impact. So if you increase opportunities by 10%, that has the same impact as increasing ACV by 10%. Same impact as increasing win rate by 10%. So any three of those things, and then it becomes where can we create a 10% impact with the least amount of effort? If you attack the numerator, it impacts everything.
You mean
obviously that's
if you attack the denominator, it impacts everything?
Yeah, Jesus. I'm rusty today. I'm sorry, everybody.
You're good. We've been in data all week, guys.
I'm excited. I'm fatigued. I've been spinning about 12 plates and trying to keep them from falling off my stick. All right. So reducing sales cycle length. So I think we've already articulated why it matters. And so I did my best to not state the obvious because it's such an interesting time in go-to-market. It's such an interesting time in just society. But with that said, I didn't get super granular on tactical execution or tech and tech stack stuff that's out there. So these are just kind of bulleted, here are some concepts that are interesting or surface area that's very interesting that can help you reduce the cycle. So the first is leveraging conversational AI. So, and there's good data I use. It's something crazy. It's 70% of buying decisions are made based on the first vendor that gets back to you.
That's true.
It's an insane number. And it's holy shit. So responsiveness is important. So leveraging conversational AI helps with that responsiveness. And obviously you can train it on your knowledge base. You can train it on your whatever you want. But the thing is you're providing real time and personalized and thoughtful. So it's okay, somebody comes to our website. We identify their IP address. We grab their email. We know their title. We know their company. Oh my God, we're so schooled now by the time they ask us a question. It's well, I'll imagine that you're asking about this because you're at this company and you feel this pain point because this is your job. Is that right? And it's woo, that's better than a salesperson could have done. So conversational AI in the form of a chatbot on your website. It used to just be conversational selling. So it was Drift. Those were all kind of the forefathers. And you'd have to build these huge decision trees. So it'd be is this a support or a sales question? Support. Okay, you're in this bucket now. And you'd have to map out all these crazy trees. And it was really brutal to implement. And it all just ended up being talk to sales, hit 0, pound 0.
Yeah. 50 chat flows. It just ended a button. Talk to someone.
Talk to me.
That wasn't intuitive.
It's that was 80 hours of work. So conversational AI is first one. Implementing digital sales rooms. And this is, again, something that's been around forever, but it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And this is basically a buyer portal that's hey, here's the demo we did. Here's a cost ROI calculator. Here's all the people that have been involved. Here's all this, et cetera, et cetera. So you're kind of centralizing the knowledge to facilitate consensus building and the actual decision-making process. And then the other cool part about digital sales rooms is that it's surface area for you to measure engagement. And then that engagement can pipe right into your predictive pipeline management, which is bullet 3, where you can say, we're looking at all the we know that 90% of our wins happen within a 5-week time period. This deal has just passed 5 weeks. That's punitive by this much, but the people are all active in the digital sales room. It's okay, it's kind of neutral probability of close. But there's a lot of predictive stuff that isn't that technical that'll help you have, a much more objective point of view on pipeline.
That's really quick. Digital sales room. That's an interesting take. As I'm reading it, it's kind of like a data room for a family office or for an investment firm. But salespeople don't usually utilize one. They think, hey, the knowledge base, it's public. You can see what the platform can do. So therefore, you're aware enough of what you want. I'll sell you based on that. But the digital sales room, I could see where there's a lot of value in that, especially a solution like Place CRM, shameless plug. where you can see your entire timeline of communications and your connection strength with someone, but they can also see that from a portal standpoint, right?
100.
Yeah,
It's just
no, I
surface
love
area to
that.
measure engagement and signal. It's
Yeah,
signal, and the signal here is intent. And the
I love
assumption
that.
is the more time they spend up in that thing, the more intent they have to buy the thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of sequencing within this item, start with probably a digital sales room and conversation AI, and then that'll help you capture a ton of signal that you can pipe into your pipeline predictive management stuff.
Mhm.
Alrighty then, on to numero.
One other
Please.
add-in for the conversational AI. At the end of the conversation, please try to get the bot to book a meeting on the rep's calendar. So the conversational AI should just be filling up the calendar, not only qualifying, not only sending an email, but if you can connect it to like a Calendly, NeedleCal, whatever, the faster you can get that meeting booked, you've almost damn near guaranteed the sale because no other company out there is responding that fastly. They're literally waiting for an email reply. Just book the meeting.
Oh, and then you start to think about how you're kind of thinking about the buyer journey, and it's like, cool, we've got a stuck meeting. Now we need to optimize show rates. Cool, we've optimized show rates. Now we need to, blah, blah, blah. And where you go.
Exactly.
All right, number 2, qualify and prioritize leads using data intelligence. And this would be number 1 if all variables were equal in the sales velocity thing, because it's like,
Which is never.
it's like, it's like you can go on, oh God, you ready? I'm going to try one, Kev. It's like, okay, like we want to get married. And it's like, okay, well, you can continue to go on dates with all the wrong people, or we can shorten the time it takes for you to go from date to married. Does that work?
That works.
That works. And it's like, yeah, dude, let's take the people that you're dating off the thing that don't fit your type and you're not their type.
We want to avoid trauma, lots of therapy, carrying emotional baggage. We want to avoid all of that.
Mental health, baby. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
And savings on finances, because we know dating is not cheap.
Totally. And then, exactly. Great. The cost function is totally there. It's like, or you can waste money going on all these dates that are never going to, lead to a marriage. So like right now, like there's you should not expect people people that walk into the store to buy a Ferrari, 90% of them can't buy a Ferrari. So you could be like, man, business is great. The car salesman place is pumping. It's like, nah, ain't nobody there to actually buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, no one's gave us money.
Yeah. So it's like, how many people of these are actually buying Ferraris? So what you want to do, and I think why this one is super powerful, is that there's an embedded feedback loop in terms of the more sales processes you execute or the more trial scenarios you have, and you can measure the outcome at the end of that, you have more data then to feedback and tighten your ICP definition. So at the beginning, you want to pump volume through this because you're just tuning and getting closer and closer and closer into the thing. And that's why it's really impactful, because you learn so much. But some innovative actions here, real-time behavioral insights. So, you can heat map your website. There's a whole range of intent signals you can capture, engagement on social, engagement in webinars, engagement in, if you have kind of a community managed platform, but you want to start to leverage behavioral insights for sure. And then AI does a great job of, back to the kind of feedback loop, where it's like, hey, we had 30 sales processes last quarter. These ones won, these ones lost. You can have AI pattern recognize, do cluster analysis, boom, blah, 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 and it's like, cool, you need to tune these few things. And then cool, this tunes up your ACP thing or your ICP thing. And then sales is like, oop, not an ICP fit, or it's a 2 out of 5. And it's like, hey, we know now that anything below a 3 out of 5 is not worth our time. And that that whole thing just gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So eventually it's like, okay, anything that's below a 4, we're not going to talk to over time. And then it's like anything that's below a 5, we're not going to talk to. And so you just iterate into this place where it's just absolutely surgical. And that's one of the cooler things ever.
On the flip side, anything below a 4 that we're not going to talk to, if there's a chance to have like a self-serve part of your product where you don't even need to sell these people and they can sell themselves, happy days.
100. Yeah. And if it's not so much segment based, or you'll learn a ton. It's like, well, actually the core component of our ICP is the segment, and we're getting tons of demand from SMB and kind of B2CE type E vibes. And we know, and we definitely can't point sales energy at there, but it's like, well, there's still a surplus of demand. We need to roll out some kind of user-led thing. So totally, that's where you start to map kind of the go-to-market motion to what you're seeing. And then you start to decompose the ICP into a segment-based approach. And then that leads into contract value. And then you can decide how much budget you have against that to secure those sales, just to tie a bunch of concepts together. So sequencing, just back to, and you'll notice kind of some themes emerge, right? I mean, like you want to establish surface area that you can measure. I think that is like one of the most macro things. So even if it's, we want to capture the email address of website visitors, we want to heat map our website and see where people are spending time. We want to put social listening stuff in, and we want to understand, how many of every post we do, how many people like it, how many people follow it. Okay. We can use that as a signal for engagement or intent in some capacity. So anyway, and then once you have the things that you can measure, you can feed that to an AI model, or an LLM model rather, and tune your ICP definition over time and just get way more surgical so that, and the headline here is that you don't want to be burning time on opportunities that are not airtight fit. Back to the kind of marriage analogy. Anything to add there?
No, I think that was solid.
Beautiful. Number 3, you can just increase win rates. How hard can that be? You can increase win rates through advanced buyer enablement. And this is moderate to high impact, moderate effort. So now you're starting to see, the beginning, it was like the impact was outweighing the effort. Now you start to get to a place where it's a little bit neutral, where it's like, yeah, it's like a lot of effort, a lot of impact. So we're now kind of into the things that we could interpret as lower operating leverage activities. So just to repeat it, increase win rates to advanced buyer enablement. So, and there's data that's all over the place, but can't remember one recent one. It's like, buyers are 80, and this number just keeps going up. Buyers are 80% through their buying journey at point of contact with a vendor. And then there's some huge majority that's like, and I don't want to talk to sales ever in any capacity. So that's where the world is, right?
Yeah.
By the time, just think about the last time you bought something, right? It's like by the time you get there, you know what's up. And you're like, I don't need to talk to any salespeople. I'm here to buy the thing. I need to try it out, see if my team likes it, and we're going to buy it. And you're not going to tell us anything we don't know. So that shifts the emphasis on sales away from educating on the problem they're trying to solve, the ways they can solve it, and more so like, I'm a salesperson and I've talked to 200 people like you. And so I can tell you what patterns I've seen, right? So it's all about kind of pattern recognition to uncover best practices, and then socializing that as part of the sales process, and then helping the buyer understand how your tooling maps to the emerging best practices. And that's why you start to see vendors become thought leaders, because literally they're studying the best way to solve the problem, and then it manifests in the software. That's some heady stuff.
It manifests in the software and as educational content.
And that's why we're starting to see growing emphasis on ProServe and community management, and ProServe meaning implementation, ongoing customer success, where it's like, the SaaS is kind of table stakes, getting the juice or the right amount of squeeze to give you the juice you want. That's where the edge is. And then unfortunately, all those cost structures scale with revenue. But anyway, innovative actions, AI coaching for AEs. I think this is, back in our day, Gong dropped and it was like, oh my God, we have game film, endless game film. And then it would be like, cool, every other 1v1, we're going to sit here, or we're going to do team meetings, and we're going to critique one person's discovery call. Now it's like, here's our definition of an absolutely perfectly executed discovery call. Score the call, come back, give the seller feedback, and then have the seller report to me about the feedback and how they're going to incorporate it on a go-forward basis.
That's it. It's crazy as you say it too, because I used to do batting cages when I used to work at Namely. I used to work at sales.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah. And now it's like, I could just sit there and do batting cages with ChatGPT. It's like, are you crazy? This person will never accept that. You need to approach them like this because they have these attributes. That's it.
Yeah. And you can just think about it. It's like, the easier it is to buy, assuming the product is compelling, the greater the win rate. So you can just feed that. That is the prompt. How easy is this salesperson making it to buy? Right. So start there. And that's too basic and overgeneralized. But anyway.
I would say the next level of this is for the AI coaching. It would be like as the AEs on the sales call. And we have Gong and other tools where they're recognizing the keywords and trying to coach in real time, but it's not like true AI yet. We want to get it to a point where it's so real time. The moment someone even finishes their sentence about an objection, it's like, this is how you apply. And you're like, oh, well, Sally, I'm happy you said that.
Totally. When I was I did a demo with the Winning by Design crew for a new sales agent thing. I dropped it in Slack.
Yeah?
Dude. And it's like, hey, and it's you can do deep fakes, which you have to record. You have to have a lot of surface area. So, but anyway.
I get worried about those, but.
Yeah. Well, it's like, wait, that's me on the sales call. It's like, yeah, buddy, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, oh, I'm glad you asked about this competitor. Here's a side-by-side, outcome comparison. I can sense that you're nervous about budget. Here's an ROI calculator that I've already populated.
Oh, shit.
Like in real time, dude.
That
in
is
real time.
insane. Oh man. See, that's
Insane.
exactly what we need to get to. Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's like, tell me about your security procedures. I'm so glad that you asked. Here is a copy of our blah 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 blah. Should I send an email to your
That's
CTO
the
right
new
now?
AE.
It's
Yep.
just incredible. So I
That's
think
the
like
new AE that gets augmented.
the lowest risk entry point for that stuff is probably like a solutions consultant
Yeah.
that can run, because that's just super technical knowledge. They can run side by side with an account exec. But anyway, that's crazy.
One sidebar. If you're ever going to use a software that's going to do a deep fake on your voice, your face, whatever, please copyright or trademark your likeness. You are literally
Jeez.
donating your data to these people. The last thing you want is and we're almost here in a few years to see your face talking in an ad. Guess what? You signed your rights over.
Yeah. God,
So
that's
just be
heady as
careful with
hell.
that. That's coming pretty soon.
Man, it's like, is that me? It's like, you
Yeah,
better be.
it's here, but like the companies are trying to get policies like passed to start using AI characters built off of other like humans that they've built those characters off of. So just get your likeness copywritten.
Yeah, well, this Johansson thing, it was like, yo,
Yep.
sounds a lot like me, Sam Altman. And he's like, well, you could say
Now
that.
they're trying to make it all consumer friendly now. You're gonna be watching a Hulu ad and your face is gonna come up selling you back.
Oh man,
Like,
I'm selling my Snapchat. Yep.
who better to sell you than yourself, right? It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Jesus, the world's gonna get weird fast. And then this is kind of ties to some other concepts, but another action is interactive content experiences. So no more static PDFs. You're sending ROI calculators, dynamic case studies, decision path tools. Give the buyer the space to all you can eat buffet, educate themselves on what they're trying to do and how you're different. Start by introducing AI coaching tools for sales calls. Like, it's as easy as Fathom to record your calls for free, grab the call transcript, drop in the thing that is your scoring criteria
That's
for a
it.
discovery call, for a demo, whatever. Boom. And that's $20 a month. Go, baby, go.
Yep. It would even automatically send the transcript out after in the template and format that you want. Done.
All right. Next, expand average contract size, aka ACV, with programmatic expansion. So this is moderate impact, high effort, because the programmating is a little bit weird. So the assumption here is, pricing and monetization is obviously the go-to lever to impact average contract value. And pricing, as we know, in terms of the data models and how they stack, your revenue model is first principle thing. So it's a subscription business. Is it monthly? Is it consumption based? Is it annual? Whatever. That's kind of where you start. So assuming you only have one product, expanding ACV is challenging because that involves price increases, that involves refactoring the pricing and monetization strategy in some capacity. So let's put that on the side. If you have multi-product or kind of tiered packages that are available, programmatic expansion is very useful because it basically and I guess here we're going to go into innovative actions, and some aren't that innovative, but the first step is actually defining kind of usage-based triggers. So it's like, either you might have to engineer it. It might have to be a simulation. It might be like it's kind of a synthetic thing, but it's like, we know that if a user does this in the product, they're a candidate for this other product.
Yes.
So
You
the
will
first
need to
thing is to,
structure
like,
some kind of logic based off of the patterns you've seen.
or it's like, put the mousetrap in there
Mm-hmm.
and then see who eats the cheese.
Yep.
And then once they eat the cheese, you have data-driven, behavior-based signal that can key off all kinds of automations. So now it's like, this persona ate the cheese, boom, we're going to hit that person. And we know that their first roadblock is the IT person, and we're going to hit them. And so then you start to run multi-threaded campaigns that are generally totally automated, and you have so much surface area to personalize the hell out of it with an LLM. But that starts to get pretty cool. So, and these are all connected. So it's like, define those usage-based triggers that are in the product. And this isn't like I'm having a quarterly business review. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. Client. Hey, I noticed you've been using this and this is great. Like, did I tell you that, you bought the toaster? We have a blender too. And people love the blender, right? And instead it's like, next time somebody tries to make a smoothie with your toaster, tell them about the blender. I'm warming up, Kev. I'm warming up.
Yeah. Let's just frame it like jobs to be done.
Yes.
This person has a job to be done. They got, we looked at the path that they took and the activities that they completed to do that job. Now it seems like, hey, that feature is now super sticky. We want to set a trend. What else are they doing that we can just pop up recommendations, say, hey, you might be interested in this other thing?
And I think it was HubSpot that basically just put like a button on the thing. And it was like, we're going to put a button in the menu. And when people click on it, we'll say, hey, this isn't live yet. And that's how they tested demand. And it's like, oh man, a bunch of people are clicking on this thing because they think they got it. We should make a product that does that and sell it to them.
I don't know if it was HubSpot, but you're right.
Someone did it. I can't remember.
And like in the last few years, a lot of companies just started putting like a grayed out feature with coming soon just to see who's like clicking it. And then when you click, it's like, hey, request to get access. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah. And then it's basically like a
I
wait
love
list,
that.
right? So
Yep.
it's like, cool, this is like a Kickstarter. It's like, this isn't real. Enough people click on it, we'll make it real.
All I would do is I would say that creates negative sideways energy, because if you're truly interested in that feature, you're going to be someone like me from the RevOps days where we're just emailing them back, say, hey, what is this wait list? When do we get off the wait list? When is the feature launching? Because companies do not effectively communicate what's happening in their product roadmap. In addition to what marketing is doing, what sales is doing, it's like, hey, marketing and sales are telling you to go sell this feature, buy this feature right now. Product is, hey, we're not going to launch that for another year. And you're sitting there from a customer experience perspective, just getting a little bit frustrated. You're on the wait list, but for how long? No one's telling me anything. It's
all right. So last one.
Got on the soapbox.
No, we're good. And I'm going to keep us. This has been a fun one, dude. There's some good mojo in there. I'll try to keep us on track here so we can wrap in the next few minutes. So lastly is to grow the opportunity volume. And I guess the only thing that I would say as a caveat is you need to have some generally meaningful volume of opportunities, because that is the water through the pipe, or as was told to me very recently, which is so good, and I'd heard it before, but it was a good reminder, is the best way to find where the leaks are in the pipe is to pump more water through it.
Have a full pipe.
So, so if you don't have, like, if it's like, you can't do any of this if you're only getting 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever opportunities, trial signups, whatever. So you need to achieve some kind of critical mass. I should have mentioned that more explicitly in the post, but whatever. So
it's funny you use that analogy, because my tire on my car right now has a slow leak, and the mechanic's reaction was, or my reaction was, let me just fill it up more to see where that leak is happening.
There you go. Same exact logic, right? Yeah, totally. Okay. So I think there's some other, there's not a whole ton of good news around SaaS right now with just kind of the market correction and us coming out of the golden age, which is like now totally generally acknowledged. But I think what we can say is every incremental unit of new growth is more challenging than the prior, because the assumption is like you're sucking up most of your ICP. Oh boy, it becomes increasingly challenged for a multitude of reasons. So a lot of the stuff, especially for public SaaS, which is where a lot of these insights are kind of codified, is that the incremental cost of acquiring new revenue is moving against operators, which means it's increasingly more expensive to acquire new revenue. And that puts your unit economics upside down. And then that starts to break what makes SaaS the greatest business model of all time. So, and then outbound's broken. Like there's a lot of discussions, and I feel differently about that generally. I think commodity spray and pray outbound has been broken for years. But all to say, we're going to introduce some innovative actions. So I think the first is kind of partner-led growth. So this is like a fact-finding thing where if it's like, oh my God, like there's complementary tech that we integrate very deeply with, probably a partnership opportunity. Holy smokes, there's this entire universe of consultants that are deeply involved in decisions that relate to our technology, maybe an opportunity for partner-led growth. So don't miss on that. I think the default is always like direct sales, hire a sales team, kick down doors, rip outbound, let's create more opportunities. It's like, well, slow down. Those are a lot of kind of like, just take a first principles approach to it. And it's like, which channels are the most interesting? And then what experiments can we run to kind of parallel path those channels and objectively compare them? So partner-led growth should be considered. Customer-led referrals. Like so many times it's like, do you guys and gals incentivize your happiest customers to make referrals? It's like, no. And it's like, maybe we start there. So, and that's an NPS scores. Like there's a buyer sentiment index, which I think is a lot cooler. And we'll talk about that. But NPS scores are subjective. They're survey based. Most people just click 5 stars, get out of my face. So anyway, but customer-led referrals, but you need to be able to measure where do you have the best sentiment, the best kind of perception with your customers. But that's a big one. And then community-led growth is something that we're seeing just absolutely explode. So it's like, hey, I'm going to build a tribe around this job to be done, around this problem to be solved, this pain point, this career track, this whatever. And so you create the space for discussion and engagement around best practice. And oh, by the way, our tool enables you to execute on all the best practice that you've all just agreed upon. And oh, by the way, 70% of this community uses our thing. So inadvertently, they're going to be recommending our thing And it's just all this kind of embedded stuff. So community-led growth is very interesting. On the other side of the coin, you can create kind of hurricane scenarios where if something like it very much democratizes the conversations and makes accessible the conversations that your customers can have about you at any point in time. So what you put simply, if something goes wrong with a handful of customers, they're going to go there and they're going to freak out and it's going to draw crazy attention. Or any user can create hysteria, totally maybe falsely, by introducing something that's not valid. So you need to moderate those communities, and there is risk. But I think it's a net win. That's that. Sequencing. Start with partner-led growth, and that's basically like, is there any like complementary tech, stuff we integrate forward with, backwards with, etc. And then find a way to measure your happiest customers. So I like figure out if there's partners in the trend, like the buying journey in any capacity. Yes, no, cool. Who are our happiest customers? We don't know. We need to figure out a way to measure that. We do know we have a top quartile happiest customers. Let's come up with an incentive structure and see if we can generate some referrals. Start there. Emerging KPIs for sales velocity. A time to value, which is very common in PLG, user-led growth. For Facebook, it was sometimes called, it's distinct from the concept of a North Star metric, but time to value, honestly, is so important. It's basically that first moment that you can measure objectively based on behavior in the product where they're like getting value. And basically you want to make that time to value as short as humanly possible. But that's something you want to A, be clear on. What is the value metric? And then B, how do we get users and customers and people to that point as fast as humanly possible?
Then tie that to usage-based triggers.
Boom. So then buyer sentiment index. So this is basically not some pop-up form that says, how likely are you to recommend scaling ventures to your peers? This is how many Substacks have they read? How many podcasts have they been in? Are they a CEO of a company? Blah, 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 blah. All these things come in to say, okay, this is a kind of multivariable composite score that is objective. And now they call that buyer sentiment index, BSI. And then lastly, this one's kind of weak, but like engagement depth, and that probably would foot into buyer sentiment index, but that's just, what stuff are they engaging with? And that's surface area. How many times do they comment on our stuff? They like our stuff? Do they read our stuff? Do they go to our website? Do they go to our webinars? Do they use the product every day? Those are all kind of things that put to that. Woo! All right, I'm losing my voice here.
Yeah, that was a mouthful.
All right, all to say, it's a super opportunistic time. Literally, the ground beneath us is changing in real time. And it's all good news for operators. Obviously, there's
diligent operators, because now that the SaaS market is resetting, the golden era is over. Those that weren't really about it and looking at the metrics and just being diligent, that's all going to consolidate or just die off.
Well, it's like, man, maybe these business models aren't as profitable. It's like, yeah, but the cost structure just got cut by 90%. It's like, that'll buy us another 10 years, and right? It's like, okay. So it's a very exciting time. If you're thinking about the rate at which you're generating revenue, don't try to fix everything all at once. Have a good, clear, sequenced game plan. The theory of constraints is very helpful. Like, that's an even simpler way to think about it. Like, what is the number one, like back to the analogy of most people, when they're squatting, they freak out because their squat stops. And it turns out that the constraint for squatting is your ankle mobility. So everyone's grudging it out, trying to, put more weight on the rack. And it's like, nah, dude, you should do some ankle mobility. So you got to figure out what your constraint is, and then you can attack it. And so that concept conceptually is related to this. So we're clear on where we're at, and this all ties full circle. We've got base rates on these things. We've benchmarked ourselves against our peer group. We're clear on where we're underperforming, overperforming. As it relates to where we're underperforming, we believe these are the highest leverage ways that we can go at it. A, high impact, low effort. We're going to sequence them that way, and we're just going to knock them down and ride off into the sunset.
Booyah.
Booyah. All right, I'm going to go take some deep breaths outside while it's still sunny. Hey, Lou, pleasure to share the field of battle with you, my friend. Until next time.
As always, my friend.
For the love of the game.
For the love of the game.